Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm Seth Macy. I'm filling in for Stella Chung, and this is the Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. We've got a recap of the biggest announcements from this week's Nintendo Direct, plus a ton of news from the past couple of weeks in gaming. In the entertainment world, James Gunn explains how his DCU will differ from the MCU, maybe it's the letter, and AI was used on a new Marvel show. Let me just check my watch here. Oh, it's news time!
One of the biggest games shown at today's Nintendo Direct is Super Mario Bros. Wonder, a new 2D side-scrolling Mario game coming to the Nintendo Switch. Looks like your standard whimsical 2D Super Mario game, but apparently the new gameplay mechanic involves Wonder Flowers, which can not only change Mario's appearance and abilities, but also change how the world itself looks and plays. Grab a Wonder Seed and Mario could turn into a spiked rolling boulder, an elephant, a long stretchy version of himself, and probably a lot more surprises Nintendo doesn't want to spoil quite yet. Wonder Seeds will also affect the levels, causing them to go all topsy-turvy, making a herd of sheep stampede across the screen, shrinking or stretching warp pipes, or turning day into night. The game looks insane, and I'm here for it. Now, the internet, of course, is loving the idea of Mario turning into other animals, but it's not the first time. Super Mario Bros. 3 introduced a bunch of suit options like the Tanuki suit, raccoon tail, and that weird boot thing. Super Mario 3D World had the cat suit, which also made an appearance in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, and Super Mario Odyssey allowed you to control Goombas, dinosaurs, pretty much anything you can throw your possessed hat onto. That said, this appears to be the first time a transformation has manifested as an animal wearing Mario's complete outfit. What do you think of Elephant Mario? Is it a welcome addition, or was Nintendo so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should? According to Nintendo, this is the first new 2D Mario game in over 10 years, not counting the mobile game Super Mario Run, ports of Super Mario Bros. U, and the Mario Maker games. It'll be out October 20th of this year and will set you back $60. Hey, elephants aren't cheap. Sticking with Mario, a rumor was making the rounds on the internet in the lead up to the Nintendo Direct, reportedly leaking that a remake of a classic Super Nintendo game was coming to Switch. And this morning, Nintendo confirmed that Super Mario RPG is coming later this fall. The game was originally a collab with Squaresoft, now known as Square Enix, and was released on the SNES way back in 1996. Super Mario RPG is getting a considerable glow-up, similar to what Nintendo did to the Link's Awakening remake a few years ago. This new version of Mario RPG seems to be pretty faithful to the original, down to the turn-based gameplay, familiar music, and character designs. Super Mario RPG will be available on Switch on November 17th. And finally, Nintendo isn't forgetting about Mario's little bro Luigi or his main squeeze, Princess Peach. Although their romantic involvement has been greatly downplayed recently, I guess. Anyway, a remaster of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and a new Princess Peach game are also coming to Switch. Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon is the second game in the series, and while the first was exclusive to GameCube, the sequel originally debuted on the 3DS back in 2013. This looks to be a faithful port with HD graphics for the Switch, though we're not sure if the original's multiplayer mode is making a return. Now, the Princess Peach game, curiously without a title, is only the second game to feature Peach in a starring role. And probably leaning into her leading lady status, this game looks like a stage play mixed with 2D side-scrolling action. We only got a brief teaser trailer during this morning's Direct, so expect more on Princess Peach in the future.
Now, Sony has revealed the latest games to join the PlayStation Plus library for June, and it's quite the lineup. It includes Far Cry 6, Rogue Legacy 2, and TMNT Shredder's Revenge. Now, other highlights include Inscription and Deus Ex Mankind Divided. Now, it's a lengthy list, about 24 games long. Now, you can find the full list on IGN. Now, 3 games are also being added to the PlayStation Premium Classic Collection, including Killzone Liberation, Worms, and Herc's Adventure. Now, PlayStation also shared some new data on the PlayStation Plus rebranding, which happened a year ago. Now, in an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, PlayStation head of subscriptions Nick McGuire told the outlet that the dystopian cat game Stray brought in the highest number of players since the service relaunched. And Ghost of Tsushima brought in the highest number of hours of gameplay on the service. Now, Sony also announced that it has begun testing cloud streaming with the goal to make the feature an additional perk for those subscribed to the premium tier.
Summer Game Fest has just wrapped up, and Insomniac creative director Brian Intihar took the stage to announce the release date of the hotly anticipated Spider-Man 2. Throwing to a very informative 10-second trailer, which helpfully reminded us of the game's title and tagline, Intihar revealed that Spider-Man 2 will be hitting the PS5 on October 20th this year. Along with the release date, Intihar also confirmed some details about Spider-Man 2's story. like the fact that Kraven's in New York City to hunt not just Peter and Miles, but other unannounced Marvel characters, and that the game's version of Venom won't be Eddie Brock. Spider-Man 2 will be a PS5 exclusive when it releases this October.
Ubisoft has shared the first real look at Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. It's a first-person adventure game where players take on the role of a Na'vi trained by the RDA. It's out this year on December 7th. That makes it the latest release date out of the year and currently the only AAA game scheduled for December. Along with a new trailer that finally shares details about Avatar's story, Ubisoft shared a gameplay breakdown that gives insight into Frontiers of Pandora's world. After the RDA leaves Pandora, the unnamed Na'vi rediscovers her homeworld and reconnects with her heritage, learning Na'vi weapons and survival skills and honing them for when the RDA inevitably returns. The gameplay is reminiscent of Ubisoft's other open-world shooter, Far Cry, as players must venture out into Pandora and take down RDA strongholds scattered across the planet. According to Ubisoft, the long-awaited adaptation will include single-player and two-player co-op and is designed to maximize new-gen consoles. That's good to hear because, in my opinion, the footage they showed of Assassin's Creed Mirage does not seem to be maximizing new-gen consoles. Avatar wasn't the only big licensed game Ubisoft showed off today. There was also Star Wars Outlaws coming next year, and that one is much, much more exciting than Avatar to me, if I'm being honest. Outlaws is probably the best game I've seen during all of not E3. I'll link you the gameplay trailer at the end of this video. Moving on, we now know that Starfield runs at 30 frames per second on both Xbox Series X and S. Speaking to IGN, Bethesda's Todd Howard said Starfield runs in 4K resolution on the Series X and 1440p on the Series S, but has locked Starfield at 30 frames per second on console to ensure consistency of performance. Howard said, "I think it'll come as no surprise given our previous games what we go for. Always these huge open worlds, fully dynamic, hyper detail where anything can happen. And we do want to do that. It's 4K in the X, it's 1440 on the S. We do lock it at 30 because we want that fidelity, we want all that stuff. We don't want to sacrifice any of it. Fortunately in this one, we've got it running great. It's often running way above that. Sometimes it's 60. But on the consoles, we do lock it because we prefer the consistency where you're not even thinking about it." Now I assume he's talking about the PC version when he mentioned 60 frames per second. I've been a little on the fence about Starfield, but after yesterday's Direct showcase following the Xbox show, I finally feel excited to play. I will definitely be blasting off on my Series X on September 6th. CD Projekt has released another patch for Cyberpunk 2077 that addresses bugs on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, and PC. Patch 1.63 fixes several dozen issues still present in the game, including bugs that stop progression, text that appeared the wrong way in mirrors, misbehaving photo mode filters, and more. The Xbox version gets specific changes of its own. An issue that affected Xbox Series performance after playing for extended periods of time has been addressed, and CD Projekt has changed the number of available save slots to 20 for manual saves and 10 for point-of-no-return saves. These changes come ahead of Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty expansion, which is set to revamp many features in the base game, alongside what will presumably be patch 1.7. Vehicular combat, a Cyberpunk Edge Runners-inspired cyberpsychosis feature, and a clever nod to The Witcher are coming too, though at the cost of upping the game's PC requirements. I'm not sure if it's cool that CD Projekt is still improving the game almost 3 years after its release, or if it's bad that there are still so many bugs to fix 3 years after release. In any case, Phantom Liberty arrives on September 26th. Moving on, Microsoft has announced the next wave of Xbox Game Pass editions, carrying subscribers to the end of June and into the early part of July. Need for Speed Unbound is the highlight. It races onto Game Pass on June 22nd. Game Pass Ultimate and EA Play members get access to this Criterion-developed racer, which IGN awarded 7 out of 10 last December. Also on June 22nd, The Bookwalker launches on Game Pass Day 1 across console and PC. In this narrative adventure, you play a writer-turned-thief with the ability to dive into books. 2 games hit the service on June 27th. The Nordic horror-inspired Bramble the Mountain King and Dieselpunk Metroidvania Fist Forged in Shadow Torch. On June 29th, farming sim Story of Seasons Friends of Mineral Town launches. Then moving into early July, Game Pass gets 2 games. 90s-fueled retro adventure Arcade Paradise on July 3rd, and Sword and Fairy Together Forever on July 5th. Games leaving the service on June 30th include DJ Max Respect V, Empire of Sin, and Matchpoint Tennis Champions.
Okay, so I want you to imagine pouring countless hours into Diablo 4's Permadeath hardcore mode and getting a character to level 91 only to watch them die during a loading screen. Well, unfortunately for one Diablo 4 player, this is all too much of a reality. And the way it happened, in his own words, is kind of bullshit. Can I say that? I just said bullshit. We're gonna have to bleep that out. Okay, bleep out the bullshit. Now, streamer Quinn69 was hit with the Hall of the Fallen Heroes message while he was teleporting upon completing a dungeon crawl. Now, the man finished a keystone, hit the portal, and somehow his character died while the loading screen was up. Now, it's an unfortunate circumstance, but there is a possible explanation as to why it happened, and it might be due to a modifier Quinn was using. Now, Twitch streamer Kriparian had a pretty good explanation for this situation.
Sometimes you get pinned in that middle room. The bubble can spawn outside of the middle room. If you're doing the zapping thing on hardcore, you're just an idiot. I don't think he's entirely blameless in this situation. You do not do that modifier on hardcore. You just don't do it.
What the f***?
Now, this situation obviously didn't sit well with Quinn, and you can probably sympathize with that if you've invested a lot of time into a game save. Now, fortunately, Quinn69 has one of those Century Bob training bags, and he took out his anger and frustration on that thing and his microwave. It's strange. Anyways, what's crazy is Diablo 4 actually reported the death as slain by environment. Now, Quinn tweeted this message out to Diablo telling the company to fix their game. Now, Quinn's stats are really impressive when you look at them. But some commenters online have stated this as the main reason they'd never have a character on hardcore mode. Getting slain by the environment is probably not the way you'd want to go out. Is it worth all the effort? Probably not, but I want to know what you all have to say about this situation. Drop me a comment and let's discuss your experience with Diablo 4 if you're currently playing it. And what's your level? Let's talk about it.
It's time to take a quick break, but when we come back, the actor for General Zod wasn't too satisfied about returning in DC's The Flash, plus AI was used to create the intro for one of Marvel's new shows. See you in a bit. Welcome back. It has been confirmed that Marvel's new series, Secret Invasion, used AI in its intro sequence. But first, James Gunn explains how his DC universe will differ from Marvel's. Let's find out some more.
And with James Gunn stepping into the driver's seat at DC Studios, the question a lot of people might have is how does he plan on differentiating his approach to projects from the decades-long MCU formula established at Marvel Studios by Kevin Feige? Well, speaking on actor Michael Rosenbaum's podcast Inside of You, Gunn answered that very question, explaining how each approached secret identities differently. Now, the MCU doesn't necessarily deal much with secret identities and the duality of having one, save for Spider-Man. Now, within the DCU, he explains that's all there really is. Batman and Bruce Wayne, Superman and Clark Kent, etc. Now, here's more of what he had to say.
If you look at the MCU, there are very few superheroes. There are very few traditional superheroes. There was never a guy with a secret identity until Spider-Man in the MCU. Their Cap was turned into a soldier, even though he wears a mask.
And that's all there was in DC.
Iron Man outed himself at the end of the first Iron Man because they don't want to deal with the secret identity stuff. So there is a bit more of a fantasy element to DCU because there are these larger-than-life superheroes, and you can't take that. You're not going to make. People are going to do whatever they're going to do in the future. But for me, there's Superman and Clark Kent, like they're two different characters, and you have to find a way to deal with them that's as grounded as possible within this world of DC.
Now, he went on to mention how much he's excited to create true world building within the DCU, given how vastly different cities like Gotham and Metropolis are. Now, these aren't known quantities like cities within the MCU, such as Marvel's favorite playground, New York City. Now, there's more of a fantasy element within the DCU given its fictional cities and locations. Now, that's not to say the MCU doesn't necessarily have that. It's just that the DCU contains more of it, and Gunn's focused on exploring that more within the big and small screen. Now, I think, a lot of comic fans love the duality of having a secret identity these larger-than-life heroes have to maintain and separate from their other half. And with Gunn taking on both the writing and directing for Superman Legacy, we'll see how he explores these fantastical locations and the type of world building he has in store for Superman, Clark Kent, and the denizens of Metropolis. Not to mention seeing his interpretation of Krypton and the villains within the Superman world. Now, some might be skeptical of Peter Safran and James Gunn's approach, but just listening to Gunn on that podcast and how passionate he seems to be with what he has planned for comic fans, it really sounds like, they have the very best intentions. It sounds like he plans on upholding the main pillars of DC Comics by keeping the main things that drive the narration seen within the pages of the comics. Now we're going to get to see the duality behind having a secret identity, how that affects the titular heroes of the story, and expansive world building not beholden by real-world locations. Now, exciting stuff ahead for DC fans. The Superman Legacy kicks off Chapter 1 of the Gods and Monsters storyline we'll see unfold within the DCU. Now, after Superman Legacy, James Gunn is keeping busy with work on Season 2 of Peacemaker. Now, on the very same podcast with Michael Rosenbaum, Gunn gave us a little insight on what we can expect and when. Now, he said, quote, "Peacemaker's coming back right after I do Superman. That's my next thing. I'll go straight into Peacemaker from Superman." So it seems like there's not much rest for the director, going right into the Max series, which likely won't see the light of day until sometime in 2026. Now, Superman Legacy is scheduled to release July 11th, 2025. Now, I think a lot of DC fans might be wondering how Peacemaker will fit into the wider DCU. But Peacemaker isn't the only Suicide Squad movie alum that's coming back to the small screen. Viola Davis will reprise her role as Amanda Waller in a series based on the character, serving as a spin-off of the Peacemaker series. Now, over on Disney territory, we're expecting some delays of upcoming projects. Now, the next 3 Avatar movies are getting bumped by a year, meaning we can expect the next Avatar film December 19th, 2025. Now, hopefully gamers will still be enjoying the upcoming Ubisoft game, Frontiers of Pandora. Maybe we'll get a DLC or two to keep up the hype and momentum heading into the third film's 2025 release. Now, as for 4 and 5 of the Avatar films, expect those in 2029 and 2031 respectively. Now, moving on to other Disney properties, Deadpool 3 has been bumped to May 3rd, 2024. Now, my hope for this one is that maybe we'll be enjoying that Wolverine video game sometime in 2024, given the fact that he'll be showing up and showing off his claws in that movie. But, given how little we've seen of the Insomniac video game, it might be just wishful thinking on my part for us to be able to play the game along with seeing Logan alongside the Merc with a mouth. But I don't know, man. Things can happen, and I hope they do. Now, moving on into space territory, the next Ridley Scott-produced Alien film is set for August 16th, 2024. Now, as for Star Wars, there's apparently 2 slated to release in 2026, one in May and another in December. Now, no premise has been given at this time for any of these films. Now, there's a ton more dates that have gotten pushed back, and to check out the exhaustive list of reshuffled dates, head on over to IGN.com. Now, the opening credits for Disney Plus's Secret Invasion series was created using AI-generated imagery. And while that might be par for the course these days, given how popular AI has become as of late, some Marvel fans are a little upset about it. Now, that said, the executive producer and director of the series has a valid reason for using technology that has the potential to take over the jobs of real-life humans. And it kind of parallels the premise of the Disney Plus series. Quote, "When we reached out to the AI vendors, that was part of it. It just came right out of the shape-shifting scroll world identity, Who did this? Who is this?" We would talk to them about ideas and themes and words, and then the computer would go off and do something. And then we could change it a little bit by using words, and it would change. Yep, that's exactly how Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Blue Willow, and many other AI-generated imaging programs work. I think the most surprising bit of this story is the fact that a Disney-owned property is taking advantage of the capabilities of AI to create something that you'd assume they'd have someone on payroll to create for them. Then again, Marvel Studios recently came under fire for a tendency to overwork and underpay VFX studios. Using AI entirely, though, is pretty much the fear a lot of artists have in regards to the technology. While most people use AI for fun and memes, some folks out there are actually using it to replace artists and save money. Now, AI is one of the hot-button issues at the heart of the ongoing writer's strike. The WGA is calling for the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers to ban the use of AI for writing scripts, generating source material, or the training of AI using existing WGA material. Now, VFX artists may not be striking, but Disney may be pouring gas on the fire by dropping a show with an AI-generated intro while writers are protesting, among other things, the use of AI. Now, while I personally have no problem with the use of AI, I think the main reason Marvel Disney is catching backlash for this on Secret Invasion is because the company has more than enough money to pay someone to do a far superior job than what AI is capable of. In fact, Marvel Studios probably could have just had a human artist maybe create something that looked like it was created by AI. But I guess given the nature of the series, alien life forms coming to Earth and assuming the roles of Earthbound individuals, it's kind of fitting to utilize AI art. Now, people are going to have varying opinions about this, and I know you do. Now, what are your thoughts on the opening title for Secret Invasion? Are you all for embracing our future AI overlords usurping our jobs? They're gonna take our jobs! Or do you think it is a problem and will become a bigger concern as the technology advances? Let's talk about it down below. Alrighty, now moving on over to more Marvel news. Marvel Studios isn't just passing on using real-life artists on Secret Invasion. It's also passing on showing up to Hall H at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. And with the ongoing writer's strike and previously announced projects like Blade, Thunderbolts, Daredevil Born Again, and Wonder Man currently on hold indefinitely, Kevin Feige probably doesn't want to show up and announce the next 4 MCU phases when the current one is up in the air. Now, while it might not have a presence on that stage, making our jobs here at IGN at Comic-Con a bit more difficult, Marvel will still have a presence at the convention floor for all the true believers out there. They do still make comics, I mean, those colorful pictures, those things that you see flashing right before the Marvel Studios logo pops up. You know what I'm talking about. Anyways, Marvel Studios isn't the only big name skipping certain portions of the famed convention. Universal and HBO have decided to sit this one out as well. And with the looming Screen Actors Guild strike that was recently authorized, if an agreement isn't reached by June 30th, a whole lot of actors might not be present to promote their various movies and shows. And I don't know what the hell we're gonna do here at IGN. I really don't know. We're just gonna be sitting on couches talking to each other. I can do that in the cafeteria. That's right, we have a cafeteria and a locker room too. It's weird. Anyways, maybe this year's Comic-Con will have a heavy focus on comics. What a concept. We'll have to wait and see what shakes up July 20th through the 23rd. Now, speaking of shakeups, the Flash movie didn't really shake things up at the box office following its premiere this past weekend, bringing in only $55 million. Now, for reference, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse made $120.5 million opening weekend, and in its second week, still made more than The Flash's debut at $55.42 million. An anonymous source who's worked on many major film campaigns told Variety that The Flash should have made close to $120 million and that this whole rollout was a disaster. Go figure. When you have a limited press run partially due to the leading actor's real-world indiscretions, it kind of mucks up your promotional rollout plan. I mean, not being able to do press and media interviews due to the unpredictability of its main star would surely have some effect on box office performance. Then again, the CW Flash series just skidded to a halt after 9 seasons, so maybe Flash fans got their fix. But still, I think we're all curious to know what James Gunn and Peter Safran have to say in the coming weeks regarding the Flash returning in their vision of the DCU.
Michael Shannon first played Superman's nemesis General Zod in 2013's Man of Steel, and from what he says about returning to the role for The Flash, he much preferred his time with the character the first time around. At some point in The Flash, Barry Allen winds up time traveling back to the events of the first DCEU movie, which puts him into opposition with the Kryptonian warlord who, at that point, is trying to remake Krypton on Earth. In an interview with Collider, Shannon compared how Man of Steel and The Flash focus on Zod's motivations. He said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't quite satisfying for me as an actor. These multiverse movies are like somebody playing with action figures. It's like here's this person, here's that person, and they're fighting. It's not quite the in-depth character study that I honestly felt Man of Steel was. Whether people think that's crazy or not, I don't even care. I really felt like Man of Steel was actually a pretty sophisticated story. I feel like The Flash is too, but it's not Zod's story. I'm basically there to present a challenge." So, while Man of Steel took time to explore Zod's motivations for opposing Superman and attacking Earth, The Flash seems like it's using the character more as an obstacle for Barry Allen. It sounds like Shannon at least accepts that his function in the movie is to serve Barry's story, as he went on to praise the challenging tightrope that star Ezra Miller had to walk with their performance in order to ground what's promising to be a big reset for DC movie canon. We'll see whether Michael Shannon's Zod is truly unsatisfying in The Flash when it hits theaters later this week. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was enough of a hit commercially and critically to get a sequel, and it's only taken 12 days for that sequel to outgross the original. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse crossed $390 million over the weekend, which means by the time of this taping, it's almost certainly past $400 million. That's compared to the $377 million that Into the Spider-Verse made during its entire theatrical run. That makes it Sony's best performing animated movie, but with Across the Spider-Verse losing out to Transformers Rise of the Beasts at the box office over the weekend, it'll be an uphill battle for it to dethrone the #1 Spidey film of all time. That's Spider-Man No Way Home, which webbed up $1.9 billion, and it only needed 3 Spider-Men to do it. Across the Spider-Verse is the first of a 2-part animated epic, which will conclude with Beyond the Spider-Verse, coming out in March of next year. Will we see live-action Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland join their animated Spider counterparts for the finale? Almost certainly, unless Sony and Marvel hate money.
I'm Seth Macy filling in for Stella Chung, and that was your weekly fix. We will be back here next Saturday with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news of the week. See you then.